and it would act more in the interests of the regions than the system we've got ever has. So rewiring Britain with those three key things: PR for the Commons, elected Senate of the nations and regions, and maximum devolution, and actually put pressure, I would say, on Wales and Scotland to get power down in their countries as well.
I'd like it to be noted, I didn't ask the question that got you to the PR motion. Okay, so let's take some questions from the floor. I'll make sure that we finish on time. So I've got a few hands there. Let's go, I'll take these in a bunch. So one question just there, one just there, and then one at the front here. So to the lady just on your right.
I just wanted to congratulate you first of all on being at work. I was one of the Mancunians about 3 years ago who sent a very scathing email to your office, sort of complaining about Stagecoach.
It was you that did it.
And I got a response saying they've got a monopoly. So well done on that, and also congratulations on the local authorities in Manchester giving out the national living wage to social care workers. I just want to touch on social care. So I've heard you speak a lot about national standards and local delivery. What would you do to ensure that proper training was provided to social care for people, particularly with learning disabilities, whose life expectancy is much lower than the general population, and obviously not great? So that's my question.
Oh, fantastic.
Great question. Thank you for what you said.
If I could take a couple more, if that's all right, to the group. So one there on social care, and in particular how we get the right people into such an important service. Second question was back there.
Hi. So I work for a community organisation in Sheffield, and I really understood when you were saying, you know, I'm waiting. I'm here, I've got a plan. So I've been 20 years trying to get my place's plan enacted, and I'm still waiting. And I sort of feel that devolution's important, and everything you said was fantastic. Do you think it's important to drive that power the next level down?
Yeah.
You know, because I'm still waiting.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely.
Okay, so a question about community level devolution. How do we get things right down to the grassroots? And up the front here.
Great, Andy, that was fantastic. Patty Rundle from Denmark, acting for years and years, working on global level policies. So I'm thrilled, and actually it's made me think an awful lot what you're saying about being rooted in the place, bottom up. I mean, I'm a campaigner at heart, so I've done this with boycott and everything, so that's always bottom up. But you clash with often, and we find governments and others clash with global policies. And actually, so I'm thinking about what you're saying, where should we be putting our things? And one of the things you've managed to do, I think, so brilliantly, is you've got the trust of people. How did you do that? I mean, because you actually, it sounds as if you've managed to do it without people saying and battling with you all the time, or have you hidden that all the way? Because it sounds amazing, and that's what we need, this trust that people have, that you, the policymaker, will actually do the right thing by them.
Okay, so three, so the last question there, a couple of elements. No, so one on the local and the global, and another on building trust. So there's the questions on community devolution and social care.
Yeah, great questions. Thank you, everybody. On social care and the workforce, I think this is a new front is opening up here, a new front of opportunity, because actually I think the reform in the health service that we've just had, the debate was the time right, I think it opens up the possibility of true integration now between health and social care. So in our case, Sir Richard Lees, long-time leader of Manchester City Council, is chairing our integrated care board, and that's a very deliberate move on our part, because we are now saying council and NHS, you've got to become one. It's got to become one system. In fact, public services need to become one. That's how we want a place-based approach. You've got public service teams in the localities rather than in their silos. Do you see what I mean? You create a kind of multidisciplinary team.
How did you get through sometimes social care being negated and neglected?
I know, we're working, I mean, it's kind of work in progress, as you say, but we are paying a real living wage, or our councils have agreed to do that from next year. Well, some are already doing it. But the answer to your question is one workforce. That's our vision. One workforce, where we start to apply NHS standards in terms of training, development, and pay and progression to the whole system. That's our vision. If Labour comes in and I'm really pleased to hear Wes Streeting talking about a national care service. I put that forward, 13 years ago as Health Secretary, and ideas take a long time to come through in politics, don't they? But I mean, that's great. Again, we will be absolutely ready to go. We could be the exemplar for a Labour government in creating a one workforce approach. And let's be just clear about this, we're not going to beat around the bush, with a substantial pay rise for the people looking after adults with learning disabilities or working in residential care or domicile. Because it's about pay and it's about training as well. Because the point is, when it comes to care, if you've not got security in your own life, in your own circumstances, you can't leave your home and then go out and provide security to someone. That's the point, isn't it? And finally, I can feel this debate moving to the place where we want it. But the Greater Manchester vision, to answer your question, is one workforce. That's the key enabler to an integrated health and care system. You're waiting for the plan. I like the fact that resonated. I think, again, we could do more here, but we have got our voluntary and community sector organisations. They are in the room, they're doing things with us. So I'll give you an example, the homelessness example. There is a homelessness action network in Greater Manchester, chaired by one of our faith leaders, Reverend Ian Rutherford, who does an absolutely phenomenal job for us. It's a network of big and small charities, community organisations, voluntary organisations, faith organisations, and they are very much driving the delivery of what I was talking about before. We always have the voices of people with lived experience in our conversations. I think there is a sort of a step beyond. So what could be the catalyst for your plan? It used to go by the name of social prescribing. I don't much care for that name. We are in the business of creating a live well service in Greater Manchester. How could you give everyday informal support rather than just prescriptions to our residents on a whole public services approach, and that be delivered by community and voluntary organisations across our 10 boroughs, and very much the micro ones, not the big ones. That's where our thinking is going. Embed, and then that builds a positivity from the bottom up, then, doesn't it? Because people are involved. It is building wealth in communities. And I'm not saying we're there, but I think we're nudging towards it. And obviously we talked to Oliver and colleagues in Sheffield, and we are trying to support there as much as we can. And then on the last question is a real good one. In terms of the global, I think we've got a role to play there. So Steve Rotherham and I did the first ever joint mayoral overseas visit recently, formal visit, and we went to our good friends in Ireland. And we got the green carpet completely rolled out for us. Why? Because they have a different relationship with us than they do with Westminster. This city could be an annex. Well, Dublin and Liverpool, they are part of the same city. They're like two sides of the same city, separated by a big sea, aren't they? But that's how we feel about Ireland. Obviously, our histories are my personal history. We're all wrapped up in Ireland, and so when we go there, we just have a totally different relationship with them than they would have with the formalities and the frostiness of Westminster. And we can play a role then, in terms of getting underneath the tensions of national politics, where there's all of that. City to city is just city to city diplomacy is something that we're underplaying. Cities networked. It's the same with Brexit, isn't it? We've got a really strong relationship with Barcelona, really good relationship with the Ruhr area of Germany. I was there just a couple of weeks ago. Lyon, and these are our Manchester's partners around Europe, and that keeps things going and keep the conversations going. It's why it's important. Why did we win every award? I suppose you've got to credit not the show pony at the front. It's the organisation at the back. Kevin, my campaign director, is standing there. He would claim that he won every award in Greater Manchester, not me. I don't know. Obviously people knew me is one thing. So I've been around as a Greater Manchester MP for a long time, 16 years. Obviously I've been in Westminster, so I had that. And I think the job I'm doing is a cabinet level job, without being sort of bragging about, but it is, it's a big sort of job, and that cabinet experience was critical. I don't know, they'd say, a lot of people said I don't get everything right. We've had challenges in Greater Manchester Police, we had a clean air zone, which we didn't, was kind of imposed on us by the government, and that was a frustration because we weren't in control of that policy, and that caused issues. But I hope people see why I'm doing it, and they buy in for the fact that honestly, we grew up here, Steve and I, in the 80s. We saw what happened here, you know. Without going to the sob stories, you know, I left and went to London, but in many ways, when I left, it was like coming home when I kind of came up fully back from Westminster. And I just hope most people got a sense of what I was doing, why I was doing it, and hopefully that comes over. But it is that thing, you see, when you get out of the strictures of the party first point scoring thing. I just think that's what I'm trying to say, the public respond in a different way. I think people in England have never really had that politics, because the council chamber gets wrapped up in Lib Dem this and Labour that. Whereas this level of politics, there's no point in getting involved in any of that. And I think the public respond differently to it.
Let's get a few more questions in. Before I do, I think you're from the campaign We're Right Here, aren't you, sir? That asked the community power question, or related to it. So, if anyone hasn't seen it, We're Right Here, in terms of examples of community action, fantastic. Give it a Google, they're really, really excellent. Let's take a few more questions. So, one right at the back there, I'll take one up here, and then one from the gentleman there. So, up the back.
Sam, the leadership's come out strongly for nationalisation of rail today.
Yeah,
Do you think, given the energy crisis, they're missing a trick by not going for nationalisation of the big energy firms as well?
Okay.
Well, can I? Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Let's take a couple. So, a question there about nationalisation. The party. Yeah.
I've got a really simple one. Why can't we go back to Manchester for the front conference? We haven't been there for so long and we loved it.
We're too expensive for Labour. We can't afford us.
That's the bear trap question, that is. And then the third one just there, yeah.
Thanks very much. A guy from Heineken, our biggest breweries in right now.
So it is, yeah, absolutely.
Clean air zone, you mentioned it then, but can it work? Can it be brought in?
Yeah.
Do you want it to be? Should we abandon it? What's the next step for it?
Okay,
I seem
thanks.
to have grouped the three tricky
Good
questions.
ones. Oh, yeah, good ones.
Okay.
No, I'm really pleased with what Louise Hay has said today. I was standing on a platform for over an hour this morning. Train cancelled after. This is people's reality in the Northwest, and it's not just getting on the Northwest. Avanti's been a disgrace, to be honest. What they've done to people over the summer. They're damaging our economy every single day. And the same company owns Trans-Pennine Express, which is cancelling trains left, right and centre. If Labour was in government presiding over the rail system we've got now, it would be in the papers every day. And I don't understand how they apply different standards to Conservative governments than they do to Labour governments. And the media needs to look at themselves in the mirror about that, because they do. The Labour ministers would have like a, pilloried left, right and centre if we were running something beginning with show at the end and the S at the start. If we were running that kind of thing, honestly, where's the accountability here? It's unbelievable. They're damaging people's lives. They're damaging people's businesses. These rail companies. And where's the consequences? There isn't any, and it's really not on. The new Transport Secretary is definitely an improvement when it comes to saying I've had a good conversation with her about these things. But the answer is, I think privatisation has clearly failed. The public know it's failed. When you're asked to go, if you were to walk up to Manchester Piccadilly today, and you said, I just need on the day, standard anytime return to London, do you know what the cost would be? £369. For what? You get on a train then, and there's no seat, and there's the cafe buffet's not working, and then it's the one back is cancelled, or you're in a stampede at Euston. It's just unbelievable that it's not a bigger national debate. But well done, Louise. Well done, the Shadow Cabinet and the Labour Party for making this commitment. I think energy's different. I think rail has to be run as a national system given the complexity of the timetable. When it comes to energy, we're moving towards a more localised approach, aren't we, with renewable energy, solar, wind. So what I would say there is start thinking more public ownership of energy, but not necessarily going and sort of nationalising everything, because Steve and I could be given funds to build those and own those new energy systems, and I think that would be a way of thinking about energy, and maybe some nationalisation, because I think some of it might be justified. I think the way I would look at it is, in the 80s, we sold off life's essentials, water, gas, electric, buses, trains, and we've ended up massively exposed in a cost of living crisis as a country. So I think the public are clear-eyed about this. They see the need for change, and I think they'll support what Louise has said today. and I think we need to take the same principle further. I'm putting buses under public control. We are buying electric buses now, built in the north of England, which is a great story, a devolution story itself, built over in Scarborough at Alexander Dennis. You know, this is a good story, and the public support it. But I think there is a difference, if you like, between rail and energy. I'm going to make a bit of a facetious comment there, but I think what happened was a 10-year deal was signed, I think, by the party, I think, a few years ago. So the Liverpool-Brighton thing has been baked in for quite a while. But I'll be making my play to get the party get the party back in. So Liverpool, I think, undercut us. I think is the answer. I don't know. I'm only guessing, but I think something like that happened. But not to avoid the clean air zone. So it wasn't. You know, we didn't devise the policy. This is the frustration for us and the 10 councils. They were served with a legal direction by the government. We always had concerns about it, and we didn't want to go down the Birmingham route of cars because we'd had a vote on a congestion charge a decade ago, and it was really, you know, when public transport's not good enough, you can't punish people for using their car, and it still isn't good enough. So we said, look, we'd have everything else, but not. And then we went into negotiations with them, and as ever, they didn't give us enough funding for the switch scheme. So we were worried about it in the middle of 2021. And then as we got closer to implementation, it was becoming more and more obvious that the vehicle market had changed dramatically because of the pandemic. So the vehicles weren't available, or if you were going to try and order one, it would be 2 years waiting time. So the scheme devised pre-pandemic simply did not work post-pandemic. And I went back to the government earlier this year and said, look, you know, this won't work. And you can't impose a charging scheme in a cost of living crisis. And a lot of politics ensued, a lot of it on the government side. Where it's currently at is that we are firmly saying we want a non-charging scheme with incentives for people who want to change, because we think that can clean the air up within the time frame. The government are still insisting on a charging scheme for Manchester city centre, or, well, you know the area, the inner ring road, so Regent Road, Mancunian Way, Great Ancoat Street, Trinity Way. Now, they're still insisting on a charging zone there. Our argument is people will, even if they don't live within there, they'll still go through there in the course of their work, and that will present a lot of challenges to businesses. So it's currently in that sort of stalemate, I'm afraid. But we have a new Environment Secretary, and I'm seeking an early meeting with the Environment Secretary to see if we can resolve this once and for all. It's got to be a non-charging zone, I think, with incentives to help people change.
I'm gonna steal the last question if that's okay. So we've got time for about one more, and I guess as a kind of final remark.
Do you want that gentleman and your one more? Because I think you've had your hand up. I don't want to. Sorry.
God, no, that's quite right. You got it.
My arm's getting.
Yeah.
Thank you. David Taylor-Gooby, I live in Easington. You visited us.
I do. I remember it very well. Loved that visit.
I want to ask you a basic question. I wouldn't dream of asking you to give advice to the North East because I know what they'd say anyway. But how do you reconcile this with having a strong regional authority which had a seat at the top table and even a seat at the international top table, which you obviously have, with the fact that rural fringes often want to go their own way and maybe become county? That's happening in Durham now. They're going to be a county authority.
Yeah.
I think that's a very retrograde step because they'll have no influence anyway.
Yeah.
But how do you reconcile that?
Okay. So there we go. Question on scale, and just the last one from me is where do you think the model is going? So in 20 years, the person that's elected as the Mayor of Greater Manchester, what sort of role do you hope they'll inherit?
So, thank you. I'll go with the question first. The combined authority idea is a good idea, i.e. collections of local authorities where they have common ground coming together. And I personally think that is superior to the London model, where a layer of elected politicians was created with the GLA. The GMCA, I think, is coherent because it's the 10 councils. And it also explains why we're making progress on health, life expectancy. Because when our system moves, it moves as one, everybody, the councils, GMCA, police, transport, you see what I mean? It's a really coherent top to bottom sort of concept, I think. So the answer is, so for us in our context, for Steve and I, the answer would be we've got Cheshire on our both of us have got Cheshire on our doorstep and Lancashire to the north. The idea is to let them create county deals or combined authorities and then partner with us where it's in their interest to do that. So we do partner with Cheshire on life sciences, for instance. So, and you know, we have our different relationships with them on a whole range of issues, and I think that's the way to do it. You know, everyone, even the people in the rural areas, benefit from the strong city region, don't they? Because that's the economic centre.
Presumably transport you have.
Yeah, and transport. I mean, we could, and we will need to collaborate on transport. Once we've franchised the buses, we will need to sort of see if we can start working with Cheshire to get franchise services that, you know, start outside Greater Manchester. Do you see what I mean? So but I think it's perfectly doable. And I think the North East, Jamie Driscoll gets his way. You know, a Great North combined authority sounds an exciting thing to me. North of Tyne, south of Tyne. That's getting really good then, because the map is filling in, it's getting more and more coherent. So I'm excited by all of that, and I think it can be made coherent, honestly, I do. And
That would be very parochial.
yeah, everyone, there was always Gateshead wouldn't go in, would they? And therefore it was north of Tyne. But the experience of it means people buy in eventually, and people are buying in, I think. And you want all of England covered with a combined authority, don't you? That's got to be the goal, isn't it? And then to answer the question, where do I want this to be? I want it to be UDI, Annex West Yorkshire. I think what I would like it to be in 20 years would be Greater Manchester with 3 million people. Bear in mind, that's not a million miles off Wales, is it? I think we should have a block grant from Westminster. I think we should have a Barnet-style formula applied to us, so that block grant is weighted according to our deprivation. I think we should have control of all of the discretionary public funding that could build that whole person approach to support. So benefits as well, you know, not benefit, it's that standards or the rates can be set nationally, but how we use the funding to support people should be under our control. So all public funding under our control. Modest fiscal devolution, you know, a tourist tax. I think Mark Drakeford has just put out a proposal for a tourist tax in Wales. Why not? Every city in Europe pretty much has one, doesn't it? Or most do. That is where I would see it, you know, and Greater Manchester would have a seat on cabinet committees. It would you know, be on the British-Irish Council. It would be a player in those talks because we could help with the relationship with Ireland and all of those. And of course, its mayor would get to speak at Labour Party conference.
Perfect. The very final word. Okay, thank you so much, Andy. And look, from a think tank. So there you go.
Can I just say, I hope you all agree. Thanks for listening and all of that stuff. A lot of stuff I've thrown at you all there. But we want to thank Onward, don't we? I mean, because you can't change the world just from your own place, can you? You have to reach out across different political perspectives, and I think it's good that you did come to Labour Party conference and do this. So good on you for doing that. And if there's one thing we can agree on, let's make it this. And, yes, you as well. Yeah. Hopefully something to think about that.
Sorry, went right off the wire.
Back off if that's okay.
I probably wouldn't rule it out. I'm not sure.